Hello and welcome to Your Music Industry podcast. Daniel Fish here, founder and host. And if you're listening on audio or watching on YouTube, you might notice this is a bit different than normal. And this is a very special episode. This is the first time I've done a solo episode in over a year now. So as you'll notice, the setup is a little bit different. It's me talking to a camera, which is a bit more YouTubey. But if you're listening on audio, it's still a fully fledged podcast that is made for audio as well as video. So don't worry, you're not going to miss anything out. So I'm Daniel Fish, the founder and host of Your Music Industry, and I've made it my purpose to help people like you navigate the music business so you can focus on what matters most, your love and enjoyment of writing, producing and releasing your art and music into the world. And today's podcast, we're going to be talking about kind of this world of relationships and building them digitally, which is in context of the current lockdown and quarantine. But in general, this is applicable to any day of the industry, of how you can build relationships with the industry and business contacts, not just fans. So to start off with a bit of, let's say, context, I want to break down what this relationship is. And when I think of an artist career or a brand, there's two main types of relationships. You've got the artist to fan and the artist to industry. So the artist to fan is that relationship where you're selling your music, you're hoping they buy tickets to your gigs, concerts, buying merchandise, all that side of things. Then the industry to artist relationship is with the record labels, with your publishers, your managers, your booking agents, all that side of things. And today I really want to focus on that side of things, as in my opinion, there's so much amazing content out there on marketing your music to reach those fans and grow that audience and all that side of things. But for me, when it comes to how do you find that single person in that label that you can approach to get signed, there's not much out there. So that's what I want to focus on today. If you are looking for the music marketing side of things though, I definitely recommend episode number 55 with Rory Palmereau, which is a great guide to Instagram. So this episode, how is it going to be broken down? So I'm first going to talk about a certain platform that you can use for free to start building this industry network of yours as an artist. Then I'm going to be talking about how you can use it, how it works, how to make the most of it, along with some tips and tricks. Then I actually have some questions. I put an Instagram story out today asking, what questions have you got on this said platform? So I'm going to be answering some of them, and then we're going to conclude with some case studies and just kind of a great overview just of the main nuggets and the main takeaways. So let's just take a pause for a moment and think of some questions here, and I want you to think of your reaction and your response to these three questions. So the first question is, would you like to connect with typically hard to reach industry people for your artist brand, whether that's someone at a record label you've always looked up to getting signed to, or you're having some issues with your publishing and you're looking to get some advice from someone who spends their life in the publishing world? Would you like to connect with those and build relationships with them? The second question I'd ask is, would you like to use a tool that artists rarely use, which instantly gives you a bit of an upper hand, but also gives you the opportunity to show your approach, your work ethic and professionalism to your artistic endeavors? And then finally, if you're posting content, sharing your music, your opinions, your views on the industry, would you like a great organic reach? So if you answered yes to any of them questions, the platform here is LinkedIn, and this video isn't affiliated with LinkedIn. This is just from my experience, what I've learned about the platform and how you can actually leverage it too. I am in no way the expert on LinkedIn. I'm in no way the perfect example of how to use LinkedIn, but I know from experience, from different people's approaches, from a lot of research, a great way to use it. And seeing as not many artists use it, I think it's the opportunity for me to at least introduce you to the concept. So LinkedIn is basically, to put really simply, the business social network. It's where all the CEOs hang out, the recruiters, and also the people who are looking to get jobs. Like any social media, it gives you the chance to connect with people, talk to them, comment, like on their kind of posts. But LinkedIn's a little bit differently, as you can post articles and direct links like your portfolio, which is handy, giving you, in a sense, a mini kind of CV. LinkedIn is free to use, but you can use the paid platform if you want to get more kind of options and features, but I've never used that paid platform, so give the free plan a go. So before we get straight into it and talk about how you can use LinkedIn to start building and cultivating these relationships, I first want to start with this kind of caveat. While you are going to be connecting with business people on labels that you are going to want to probably sign to, you want to approach this in the mind of you're building a relationship. You're not going straight in with this sales pitch looking for a binary yes or no answer if you can get signed. That is not going to work. You're building a human relationship here. It's going to take time, it's going to take energy, and you really need to have that perception. So the first part in actually starting to cultivate these relationships will be to build your profile on LinkedIn. And if you haven't already, I'll give you some tips now on ways I'd at least recommend you can kind of build yours. The very first one though, very first tip is not just on building your profile, it's on being on LinkedIn. Is just because it's this business social network, all of a sudden don't cut all this personality out of you as an artist. Yes, okay, it's a bit more professional than, say, your personal Instagram, but you don't want to cut away all your personality, all your creativity and flair and become this robotic person. You still want to have that there. You might just want to find a way that works with the platform and with your approach as an artist. Tip number 2 is when it comes to building your profile, you're going to be putting in the information of what you've been doing, who you've been working with, and any kind of jobs or voluntary experience. I'd recommend you put as much music-related content in there as possible, whether that's you were the chair of the Music Society in university, whether it is atelier you were part of, whether it's something as simple as putting yourself as your artist on there, as this is going to be the first impression when you approach people. So they're going to look at that and have a little breakdown and build the kind of picture you are. One question I get all the time with LinkedIn is, should I put my full-time job in there, or should I put things that aren't fully related to music on your LinkedIn? And there are 2 schools of thoughts here, and I'm definitely with the yes side of things. Okay, if you've had 6 full-time jobs in the past 3 years, don't put them all on there. Just put the most recent one, I'd say. And why? Because it shows the kind of person you are. And in that first impression, okay, they'll see you're an artist, but they might see you've got a certain role in, say, Sainsbury's. And it shows kind of your work ethic and the person you are. But also, if they're a British person like me, we have this attraction to the underdog. So seeing someone who's working away in their full-time job and then in the spare time writing an album, that shows that type of person, and we love the underdog. So just keeping that in mind, but make that decision for yourself. The next tip on building your profile will be to put your press photos in, to put links to your maybe website, your SoundCloud, any of the really important and best places you are active on. If you're on Twitter but you don't really post much, don't put that on there. Just put, say, your website, your SoundCloud, your Spotify, your main port of call, and definitely put a nice banner picture on there, as well as a nice profile picture, and trying to make it you as much as possible, as it is still in a sense kind of a business kind of social media, so you want to still be adhering to at least coming off pretty professional. So at first, before we start talking about actually cultivating those connections, how do you make them in the first place? And it's good to understand how LinkedIn works. So there's 3 different kinds of connections, and this plays a really big impact on maybe how you're trying to approach certain people who have their privacy settings set up a certain way. So LinkedIn's connections are based off kind of this networked idea. You've got a direct connection, which is known as a first. You've got someone who's connected to someone you're connected to, so they're a second. So many words of connection there. I'm connected to Dave, and Dave's connected to Suzanne. As I'm not connected to her directly, but she's connected to Dave, then that is a second connection. And then a third is typically someone you're not connected to at all. Some people have their privacy settings set up, so you can only request to connect with them when you actually have when you're connected to someone in their network, and that can be tough sometimes. So make sure you're building your network as well as going for the people you like to connect to. Okay, so now building connections. You've probably been waiting thinking, come on Dan, tell me how to do it. I want to connect with the A&R at Defected Records so I can go and get signed. Slow down. So let's talk about building connections now. LinkedIn has this amazing opportunity of you being able to find that very specific person within a certain business, which is really exciting if it's the first time using it. I know as soon as I got LinkedIn, I made the mistake of going and trying to connect with the CEO of here, there, and everywhere, and I'm afraid it doesn't work. You've got to be quite strategic about it and be human after all. Let's say you're looking for an A&R in Defected Records. Let's just use Defected as the idea here, as they're a great label with also a huge team. If you go into LinkedIn and sign in, you could search in the search bar, Defected Records. Then if they've built one, kind of a company profile will come up. You click on that and then you have a few options. If you look in the top right hand corner, you'll see a kind of a blue underlined button and that says see X amount of employees at this company. When you click that, that will give you a list of anyone on LinkedIn who has said they are currently working at Defected Records. What it'll also give you is the job titles, so you instantly know Sandra works as the head in A&R at Defected Records. This is just hypothetical. You might be instantly tempted to go and press that connect button. Don't do it yet. Don't do it yet. Make sure, one, you've built your profile, but two, think about how you're going to build that connection, how you're going to cultivate it. So when you are going to click that connect button, you do have the opportunity to fill in a personal invite. You only have so many characters, so you can't send a massive essay, which is good anyway. But what you're wanting to do is send a personalized message to Sandra, just introducing her to you and why you want to connect. That is going to give you a much better chance of building the connection with Sandra, and it's coming across, as I said, in this human, professional way. This works with loads of companies. So say, for example, you're signed to Centric Music, the publisher, and you're curious about something that's going on the back end of Centric. If you did want to start building connections with the team, you could search Centric Music, click on employees, and find someone who's working in the artist liaison team, or maybe even your account manager, and you connect with them that way. You could say something like, hey Dan, you're my account manager at Centric Music. I make music under the name of XYZ. I hope all is well. I just wanted to connect as I've got a question around Centric Music and I thought you'd be the best person to ask. That way it says who you are, they'll already be aware of your music, but it shows intention and it shows why you're trying to build that kind of connection. That doesn't mean when you go to Sandra, hey Sandra, blah, 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 I want to sign to Defected Records, here is my demo. Don't do that. As I said, it's about building the relationship. Building that connection is only the first step in building the relationship. You've got to cultivate it then. A relationship is a long-term thing and it's not just a hello, connect with me. I'm afraid not. I wish it was that easy. So what you're going to do is you're going to be engaging on LinkedIn, talking to the different people who you can, talking to the people who you're interested in, sharing your opinions. And a great thing that I think works perfectly on LinkedIn is kind of asking for people's opinions and people's perspectives on something. So say, for example, you've got an album coming out in a month's time and you're looking for some kind of maybe tips on press, tips on marketing, any of that kind of thing. You could put a status out saying, hey, I've got an album coming out soon. If any of my connections got any resources or have got any tips for me on X, Y, and Z. One, if you've built that relationship, they're going to help you because they're going to feel invested in you. You're going to feel invested in them. But they might connect you with more people. They might send you a resource which is going to be really helpful. And it's all part of that value exchange. You're giving to them and they're going to be given to you. And it is a long-term process. The great thing about LinkedIn is it has a great organic reach. So when you're going to be posting, actively posting, sharing your thoughts or asking for advice or sharing what you're up to, when people like that post, it very well shares with their connections that they've liked that post. that can be a way of building your network with their network. But using hashtags on LinkedIn is a great way of building your reach. It can actually become very easy to trend in a hashtag. So if you become prominent in a hashtag, you're going to start getting noticed by labels in a totally different way. And as I mentioned before, not many artists are using LinkedIn, so this could be your opportunity to shine in a way that's showing you to be really, really professional in your approach to your artist endeavors, but also quite clever. So now let's talk how, in the sense of case studies and maybe something that I'd do in a certain situation. So let's say I'm looking to approach a certain record label. The only information I can find out there if they want to hear my music is a demo email address. What's one quick way you can use LinkedIn to at least give your chance of a reply, to upgrade that chance? So let's say this label is Armada Music, but the only thing out there is this demo email address. What I'd personally do, if you are going to send a demo email direct to that email address, I'll go on LinkedIn, search for Armada Records, click on their employees, and find who you think will be on the answering end of that email. You will scroll down in Armada Music and find that James Hyatt is an A&R manager at Armada Records. Then in your demo email address, you could just as simply say, "Hey James," and you make it personal, other than "Hey Armada Records," one that instantly shows you put an effort in. And it's this weird thing, if someone sees an email is directed to them, they're more likely to reply rather than just "Hey Armada Records." So that's one tip. Of course, you can start building that relationship though. You could approach James on LinkedIn, build a connection, and start off the conversation. Don't be going in pitching. Ask for his opinions on the current state of trance or any particular artist he thinks a standout. Ask for his perceptions on things and to offer some insight. Don't go straight in like, "Hey James, here's my track, I want to get signed." So let's take another example. Say you're looking to get blog support or some press support on your releases, and you unfortunately haven't got enough money to invest in a press agent and you're wanting to do it independently. What could you do? One thing you could do is go on LinkedIn and search for some music writers within your kind of niche. I wouldn't be going to the top, so don't be going to Mixmag, as they're all going to be extremely busy. Go for the more independent, the smaller brands who really have built like a family and really have strengthened their niche. You could approach their writers and just build that connection, show your intention of how much you like their platform, and then you could, after cultivating that relationship, just turn around and ask, "Hey Tom, thanks for your thoughts on this. I've loved that recent article you did. I love that recent interview you did with XYZ. I'm an artist myself and I'm looking to start sending my music to some blogs. Have you got any tips for me, as I really love what you're doing? One day, I'd love to be on your blog, but have you got any tips on how I can start building momentum with kind of blog promotions or getting blog support?" As you will have built that relationship already, and you typically, they're going to reply and at least give you one tip or a bit of advice. They might even go the way of, send the music over and have a listen to myself, and that may be one way of you getting on that blog. But at least getting advice from people who are in that role will give you some direct, straight tips and tricks from their actual end of things, not from artists, and that can always be a handy thing. So now moving on from this podcast, I've given you 2 case studies, and I want to kind of finish with some tips and tricks using LinkedIn. So whenever you do go on someone's profile, they'll get a notification saying you've been there. They'll be able to click through and see you without you even like kind of messaging them or anything. That can be good in some ways, but if you're wanting to be totally anonymous, you can go into settings and turn an anonymous mode on so they won't see who you are unless they are a paying member. I've only ever used that once or twice. I personally, if I'm being on someone's page, I'm sure I'm interested in them, and if I've sent them a connection request, I want them to know I've been on the page. The next tip and trick, once again, is please do not cut all that personality out of yourself. You're an artist, don't become this robotic business person. Still be you, and just find a way that your artist vision works with the platform of LinkedIn. The next tip and trick with LinkedIn is to be active, to be proactive, to comment on people's posts and show your interest, and just keep your face and brand there and be a part of their tribe, as that will help you in building that relationship. And one final tip is connect with me. Search Daniel Fish and I will connect with you. And if you want any tips or tricks on your personal profile, just send me a LinkedIn message, but don't forget to do a personal invite when you're clicking that connect button. So now let's go to some questions I had on Instagram on the world of LinkedIn. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure to come and follow me. It's at Mr. Daniel Fish, and there'll be opportunities like this to ask me questions for future content. Okay, so the first question is from Dragos. He says, how does LinkedIn work for artists? How can I get more people to see my profile? And how can I benefit? So how does LinkedIn work for artists? It's the same as any other person. It's all about building that relationship and building that connection. So make sure to focus on that. If you want to talk about how I can get more people to see my profile, it's posting engaging content, opinions, thoughts. Creating conversations around a topic is great, and using hashtags, as all of a sudden, if you get lots of people engaging on your post, if you've got a hashtag of, say, hashtag YourMusicIndustry, you'll all of a sudden now be trending, and that'll be a top post that anyone who's following that hashtag will see, and now you're seeing more people, more engagements too. And his final thing is, how can I benefit? If you'd like to benefit as a consumer, loads of people share their opinions and advice on LinkedIn already. So, for example, Ali Samadpour, he was on the podcast this week. He shares articles all the time on advertising, and he shares some great information on his LinkedIn profile. So that's how you can benefit as a consumer. If you'd like to benefit as an artist, you can build those relationships with those hard to reach people, and finally find that person in that record label you've always looked to be signed to. Don't force it though, be a person and try and be honest and human about building those relationships. Don't be fake. So I've got another question here from Chris, and he's asking, I keep requesting to connect with people on LinkedIn, but it's just not working and hardly anyone's connecting my request. How can I at least better that chance? So what I definitely recommend is personal invites, not coming off too pitchy, showing why you're wanting to connect, showing interest in that person, and making sure your profile's set up properly. So you've got nice press pictures, you show them what you're up to, what you're working on, and so that first impression that they get is a good one. And then another question I've got is from Aaron, who's also asked, what's the benefit of LinkedIn? So I think this just shows that there's not many artists or people knowing either how to use LinkedIn or if it can be used as an artist. And I think that's where you finally get this opportunity to shine and take that initiative of connecting with those industry people you've always wanted to connect with. So I think that's kind of drawing a close on an introduction to using LinkedIn as an artist in the world of electronic music. If you do have any questions, reach out on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm Mr. Daniel Fish on Instagram or Daniel Fish on LinkedIn. Just head over and ask me a question. So thank you so much for tuning in today and being part of Your Music Industry podcast. If you're watching and listening, make sure to subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Music, please leave me a review. It really does mean a lot, and it means we can get even more guests in the future. So until the next episode of Your Music Industry podcast, stay safe, stay well, and stay focused.